It started with a letter from the HOA, a complaint supposedly about me blocking the sidewalk with my trash cans. Odd because I always kept them tucked behind the gate. A week later, another letter came, this time for unauthorized landscaping. Something about the color of the mulch I used not matching the HOA's guidelines. I thought maybe one of the neighbors was being overly picky. I mean, this is suburbia, people get weird about grass height and mailbox paint. Then came the third complaint, and that one knocked the wind out of me. It claimed I was hosting loud parties without HOA approval. That was hilarious, considering the loudest thing happening at my place was my cousin occasionally strumming a guitar in the garage. I'm not a party guy. I barely have friends over. It was just me and my wife, Lindsay, most nights. I went down to the HOA office to straighten things out. The receptionist, a woman named Sarah, didn't even look up at me when I explained. She just said, "We've received multiple anonymous complaints. Your property has been flagged for repeated violations." When I asked who made these complaints, she said, "That's confidential, sir." I walked out of that office confused and humiliated. When I got home, Lindsay looked concerned. She put her arms around me and said, "Maybe it's that old woman next door. Mrs. Thompson always complains. When our porch lights stay on too late." That made some sense. But something inside me started to itch. The timing of everything felt too perfect. Too planned. The next week, I got another letter, this time claiming I'd installed security cameras without permission. That was complete garbage. I had emailed the HOA about it months ago and never heard back. I printed the email and took it to the next board meeting. The president, Mr. Coleman, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Even if you notified us, that doesn't mean it was approved." The others just nodded along like sheep. I knew then this wasn't a coincidence. Someone was going out of their way to bury me in paperwork and fines. That night, while Lindsay was out getting coffee, I tried to get online, but our connection was slow, so I opened her laptop, which was already on. That's when I saw an email draft open in her browser. It was addressed to the HOA, describing a disturbance from our property. It was written exactly like the letters I'd been receiving. My hands froze over the keyboard. I scrolled through her drafts folder, and one by one, I found them. Every complaint that had been filed against me was written right there. My wife had been behind it all. When she walked back in, I didn't even know how to speak. My chest was tight. I turned the screen to her and asked, "Did you write these?" She paused. For a moment, I saw guilt wash over her face. Then she straightened up and said, "You never pay attention to me anymore. You're always working." I thought if I stirred things up, maybe you'd notice. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just about seeking attention. She had weaponized the OA. She humiliated me in front of my neighbors. She made me doubt my sanity, just to feel noticed. I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went back to the HOA office, this time alone. I told Sarah everything. I even brought printed copies of the email drafts. I expected her to brush it off or deny it. But instead, she looked at me quietly for a few seconds and said, "You're not the first one." Apparently they had already suspected something strange was going on. Lindsay was part of the HOA's Community Engagement Committee, handling their social media and forwarding reports directly to certain board members, her friends. She used that position to submit anonymous complaints under false names. The system wasn't just flawed. It was being used as a weapon by someone who knew exactly how to exploit it. Legally, there was almost nothing I could do. The complaints were anonymous, and the HOA had processed them, per policy. But morally, I wasn't staying quiet. I printed every draft, made copies, and distributed them to the neighbors who had sided against me. I didn't do it to embarrass Lindsay. I did it to warn everyone. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. 1 week later, Lindsay moved out. She went to stay with her sister. We haven't really spoken since. Apart from a few cold texts about who keeps what. But here's the twist. The HOA president, Mr. Coleman, resigned the following month. And Sarah, the same receptionist who once gave me that cold shoulder, left. A handwritten note in my mailbox. Thank you for speaking up. We cleaned house. So now here I am. Alone in the same house with new cameras, new locks, and a heavy silence in the air. I still don't know what changed in Lindsay. What made her go from my partner to my saboteur? Was it loneliness? Resentment? Or had I just become so distracted that I missed the signs? But I've learned something. The most dangerous enemies are the ones who sleep beside you. The ones who smile in the daylight and dismantle your world at night. And the worst betrayals don't happen in HOA boardrooms. They happen in your living room. All I wanted was peace. All she wanted was attention. And now, all that's left is a broken trust and a house full of echoes.